Centuries from now, almost all humans have lost the ability to see.
In a warm cave, a blind woman endures immense pain as she gives birth. Meanwhile, her husband leads his tribe into battle. At the foot of a dark mountain, a group of hunters moves silently, preparing to strike. This is another epic series starring Jason Momoa after Game of Thrones. The brutal yet ritualistic combat isn't about elegance, it's a necessity. Before we start, like this video and share it with your friends. 300 years ago, a plague robbed humanity of its sight. Those few born with vision are seen as heretics and burned alive if discovered. Unfortunately, the woman giving birth has betrayed her people by carrying the children of a heretic. And her husband? He is Baba Voss, the protagonist of this story. As the enemy approaches, his warriors move cautiously, trying to avoid detection. The hunters, skilled in tracking, have already sensed their presence. The battle begins with the rhythmic sound of machetes tapping the ground. Neither side can see, but they have adapted, other senses sharpened to an almost supernatural level. The ambush works at first, but the enemy knows how blind fighters operate. A sudden silence raises Baba Voss's suspicion, and before his warriors can react, the enemy launches a counterattack. Seeing his people in danger, Baba Voss tries to rescue them, but is overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Left with no choice, he cuts the rope securing the bridge. High above, enemy climbers use sound to locate him, unaware they are up against a warrior of terrifying strength. The scent of blood drives him into a frenzy, clearing the space around him. But the battle isn't over. More hunters flood the battlefield, and chaos erupts. A skilled female warrior from the tribe dives into enemy ranks, slashing through their forces. Yet, as more hunters arrive, the tide turns against them. Baba Voss fights fiercely, but is caught off guard by an elite hunter, losing his balance. Instinct takes over. He precisely measures the distance, slices through the rope, topples a ladder, and orders an immediate retreat. Knowing the terrain well, they quickly fall back to their next defensive position. This stronghold is a last resort, one Baba Voss hoped he wouldn't have to use. After a landslide crushes their pursuers, the forest falls silent once more, but the fight is far from over. At the mountain's base, an Imperial general watches, leading a group of elite hunters. Meanwhile, inside the cave, another battle has ended. The birth of twins fills Baba Voss with overwhelming joy. As he enters the cave, his earlier brutality fades, replaced by tenderness. He dreams of his children's future, unaware of the painful secret his wife is hiding. These children are not his by blood, but to Baba Voss, blood doesn't matter. His love for them is absolute, and this love is precisely why his enemies are coming. These children are the reason the tribe will soon divide. But the elders who come to confront Baba Voss don't realize one thing. This warrior will not yield. His wife cradles her newborns, fighting back tears. Baba Voss, filled with rage, steps out into the rain. The moment he stands, it is decided. The cave behind him is now sacred ground. At the base of the mountain, Imperial hunters prepare to attack, guided by an informant. At the summit, the tribe's priest, fearful for his own life, demands Baba Voss hand over the children. But Baba Voss has already made his decision. If they want his family, they'll have to step over his dead body. One by one, warriors step forward to stand beside Baba Voss. Soon, the tribe's female warriors join him. Just as tensions are about to explode, the tribe's prophet, Paris, emerges from the cave. Knowing this is a matter of life and death, she finally reveals a secret. There is a hidden path behind the mountain. An escape route. The bridge leading to it was built by an abnormal person, the same man who is the true father of the twins. Led by Paris, the tribe reaches their destination. Wind chimes on both sides indicate the bridge is ahead. Paris, suppressing her fear, cautiously steps forward, feeling for the structure. Only when she confirms the bridge is real does she let out a sigh of relief. The builder was meticulous. The ropes are sturdy, the planks tightly secured. But even so, crossing remains a terrifying challenge for the blind. Meanwhile, the hunters arrive at the abandoned village, realizing too late that they've been deceived. Their anger builds, but time is short. Guided by hunting dogs, they begin their pursuit through the forest. At the bridge, Baba Voss stays behind to ensure everyone crosses safely. Paris reaches the other side first, organizing the others. But the howls of hunting dogs signal that the enemy is close. Baba Voss quickly realizes the dogs won't cross the bridge, so he makes a sudden decision to retreat. The tension escalates as the hunters arrive. Being blind themselves, they hesitate to cross. Their leader, confirming the bridge's presence, cruelly shoves the captured traitor onto the structure, forcing them to test its safety. Sensing danger, Baba Voss hurries across, using the rope as a guide. The moment he reaches the other side, he skillfully starts cutting the bridge's support lines. Just as he prepares for the final strike, a terrified scream makes him pause. Confused, he recognizes a familiar voice from his tribe. Without hesitation, he chooses to wait, snapping his fingers to guide them toward him. As Baba Voss swings his blade once more, the bridge collapses. The hunters plunge into the abyss, their screams confirming the leader's failure. Yet, his twisted grin suggests he is far from finished. The tribe continues fleeing, following instructions left by the mysterious bridge builder. Eventually, they arrive at a hidden waterfall where the final clue is revealed. Below lies a vast, fertile valley, their new home. A hawk soars over the river, speeding toward the ruins of an old hydroelectric dam. Inside the crumbling structure, a pale, naked woman stands motionless, gazing into the distance. Her lifeless eyes reveal the truth. She, too, is blind. She is a queen. The hunters serve her. Centuries ago, a deadly virus wiped out most of humanity, leaving fewer than 2 million survivors, all blind. Over time, power became myth, and even speaking of it was considered heresy. It all started with her. The queen, portrayed with eerie precision, is an unsettling figure. Her lips murmur endless prayers, her hollow gaze unwavering. Yet, the subtle tremble of her hands and the involuntary flicker of fear on her face betray her inner turmoil. She is a paradox, fanatical yet afraid, and that makes her the most dangerous of all. This knot carries a message from the hunters, his loyal servants. These ruthless hunters burn, kill, and plunder, all for a single goal: to track down a heretic named Jirla Marl. He is the only man in centuries to be born with sight. The queen desires him, not just to capture him, but to bear his child. But fate played a cruel joke on her. The man she longed for fell in love with her own sister. Betrayed and consumed by hatred, she turned her passion into vengeance, ordering her hunters to exterminate anyone connected to Jirla Marl. But the real tragedy, Baba Voss, he became the unfortunate fool who inherited his burdens. He married a woman who came with 2 children. But fate had its own twist. Baba Voss was sterile, his face glowing with the quiet pride of a devoted father. But misfortune struck, was ambushed. Struggling through the chaos, Baba Voss was separated from the children. Wounded and dazed, he had no choice but to wait, listening, hoping for the sound of a baby's cry to lead him back to them. Yet, the heavy breathing of the bear kept him frozen. Then, suddenly, a baby's wail pierced the silence. Panic surged through Baba Voss. He needed to act. Grabbing whatever he could find, he hurled it at the bear, desperate to draw his attention away from the child. His fear meant nothing as long as his children remained unharmed. The bear barely flinched. With a single blow, he sent Baba Voss sprawling. But even as pain seared through his body, instinct took over. He braced for another desperate attempt, and then steel flashed. A dagger struck deep, tearing a dying wail from the bear's throat. The bear crumpled, dead. Baba Voss, gasping for breath, reached out and felt the blade buried in his enemy's flesh. His grip tightened. Something was wrong. Then a voice. Recognition struck like a hammer. Jirla Marl. Baba Voss stiffened. There was an unsettling warmth in Jirla Marl's tone, an unmistakable fondness for the children. Baba Voss clenched his jaw. He had barely begun to play the role of a father, and now, was he already losing them? But Jirla Marl had no such intentions. His purpose here was different. He handed Baba Voss a key. This key did not unlock riches or power. It opened a chest filled with books. He wished for the children to learn, to see beyond the darkness the world had become. Jason Momoa delivers yet another masterful performance in this gripping tale of survival and power. In a world where sight is a myth, Baba Voss fights not just with strength, but with instinct. With his son's guidance, he learns of an ambush ahead. Though he cannot see, his senses are sharper than any man's. Silent figures hide among the trees, blind archers waiting. Baba Voss listens. The tense pull of bowstrings gives away their positions. With precision, he shifts, waiting for the perfect moment. A misstep, a breath too loud, and in an instant, the first archer falls. This brutal style of combat leaves Baba Voss's daughter in shock, and then she sees it, a fallen bow. Her fingers twitch. Her instinct is to rush forward, to seize it, but a hand grips her wrist, stopping her. A blind girl, one of their own. A stealthy figure moved in complete silence, the perfect choice to retrieve weapons. She carefully made her way forward, her footsteps soundless. She picked up a bow with caution, even allowing herself a small smile. But just as everything seemed to be going smoothly, an arrow slipped from her grip and fell. At the same moment, a spear came flying toward her. During negotiations, they learned that this land belonged to Jeremiel, who was, in fact, the children's biological father. The tragic twist, Jeremiel would only accept the two children into his domain. The daughter Haniwa was eager to embrace her new home, but the son Kofun refused to leave his adoptive father, Baba Voss. Of all those involved, Baba Voss suffered the most. From the moment these children were born, he saw them as a gift from the heavens and cherished them deeply. When hunters gathered an army to kill the children, he stood up to fight them without hesitation. When they demanded he hand over the children, he turned against his own tribe to keep them safe. And when his son was captured by slavers, he went in alone to rescue him. He never expected anything in return. He only wished for their happiness. Now, this fierce warrior, who had always been ruthless to his enemies, couldn't stop himself from choking up. Realizing his moment of weakness, he refused to show vulnerability in front of his children. Holding back his sorrow, he limped away into the distance, disappearing into the misty forest. His lonely figure seemed to age instantly, and the fog around him hinted that this might be a farewell forever. Kofun, overwhelmed with emotion, wanted to call out, but a wise elder stopped him. It was a burden only a father could carry alone. The two children, still naive to the ways of the world, left their adoptive father and arrived at their biological father's home, only to discover a horrifying truth. Jeremiel had secretly made a deal with a general from another empire to sell his own daughter. Kofun happened to witness this betrayal. To cover it up, Jeremiel decided to kill Kofun. When his son Kofun was captured by slavers, Baba Voss set out alone to rescue him. The moment Kofun signaled him, he drew his curved blade, its sharp edge already tasting blood. Though blind, his years of battle had honed his instincts to perfection. He lowered his stance, stretched his body, and heightened his senses to his surroundings. He threw a blade in a wide arc, disrupting and distracting his blind enemies. The moment their footsteps gave them away, he struck with lethal precision, cutting them down swiftly. He then used his blade to brace himself and swiftly moved to the edge of the battlefield. When his weapon hit the wall, he immediately shifted into a defensive stance. Only then did he realize how brutal his own actions had been. The sound of footsteps in water revealed another enemy's position. After a tense moment of waiting, Baba Voss launched another deadly strike. Though he couldn't see, his understanding of the human body was so refined that his blade instantly found its mark. One of his enemies, an expert in sound-based combat, tried to ensnare him with a lasso, but Baba Voss anticipated the move. As the rope flew toward him, he countered, severing the attacker's fingers in one swift motion. The enemy's agonized screams only sped up his demise. Once the battlefield fell silent, he quickly measured the space around him, stepping away from the corpses to avoid distractions in the next fight. His keen hearing helped him land precise strikes, even without seeing his opponents. Now, only one enemy remained, the slaver leader. Blood splattered across his confused face as the battle continued. Both fighters held their ground, waiting for the right moment to strike. Baba Voss lowered his stance again, sharpening his awareness of the environment. As they spoke, he realized something shocking. The slaver leader was an old acquaintance, and their grudge ran deep. With a roar, the fight erupted. Baba Voss caught his opponent off guard with a well-placed arrow, but the slaver countered by throwing a hidden weapon, disrupting Baba Voss's attack. Kofun panicked and shouted, exposing his location. The slaver immediately grabbed him. Desperate, Baba Voss taunted his enemy, deliberately revealing his position. The battle was decided in a single instant. On one side of the screen, the defeated foe lay bleeding, his hands trembling in agony. On the other side, the victor slowly rose to his feet. Baba Voss walked toward the slaver and, without hesitation, drove his sword through him. This wasn't just revenge for his son's suffering, it was payback for the torment he himself had endured in the past. We will soon release the recap of Season 2, so remember to subscribe before you go.